The patrol ship floated silently through the darkness of space, its blue engines barely glowing as it moved along the border of Galactic Council territory. Inside, Officer Tom Reed stared at his scanner screen, fighting back another yawn. Border patrol duty was usually boring, just endless hours of watching empty space. But today was different. His scanner beeped. Then it beeped again. And again. Reed sat up straight, his eyes widening as more and more dots appeared on his screen. He checked the readings 3 times to make sure they were real. "Captain Wilson," he called out, his voice shaking. "You need to see this." The captain walked over, her face showing mild interest. "What is it, Reed?" "Multiple ships just appeared at the edge of our scanning range. They're not showing any known signatures. The computer can't identify them." Captain Wilson leaned closer to the screen. The dots were forming a pattern now, a massive fleet formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Her face went pale as the first images from the long-range cameras appeared on the main screen. The ships were beautiful and terrifying. Sleek black vessels with sharp angles and glowing blue lines running along their hulls. But it was the symbol on their sides that made her blood run cold, a simple design showing Earth's continents surrounded by stars. "That's impossible," she whispered. "That symbol. It can't be." The younger officer looked confused. "Captain, what's wrong?" Wilson pressed a button on her command chair, bringing up the historical archives. 3,000 years ago, there was a species called humans. They lived on a planet called Earth. They were destroyed by order of the Galactic Council. Reed's eyes widened. Destroyed. Why? The Council records say they were too dangerous, too unpredictable. They were advancing too quickly. Wilson's voice was barely a whisper now. The Council voted to eliminate them before they could become a threat. They used a planet-killer weapon. Earth was reduced to asteroid fragments. The main screen suddenly lit up with a transmission request. The unknown fleet wanted to communicate. Wilson's hands shook as she accepted the call. The face that appeared on the screen was clearly human, a male with gray hair and stern eyes. He wore a black uniform with silver markings that none of their databases recognized. "This is Admiral James Stone of the Human Liberation Fleet," the man said calmly. "I suggest you send word to your council. Tell them that the children of Earth have returned." Wilson tried to keep her voice steady. "That's not possible. Humanity was destroyed 3,000 years ago." Stone smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Did your council really think they could kill us all? 10,000 of us escaped in generation ships before Earth was destroyed. We found new homes in the dark spaces beyond your borders. We built. We grew. We remembered." Reed watched in amazement as more ships kept appearing on his scanner. There were hundreds now, maybe thousands. Each one was larger and more advanced than anything the Council had. "We spent 3,000 years preparing for this day," Stone continued. "Tell your council that humanity has returned. And this time, we're not the ones who should be afraid." The transmission cut off, leaving the patrol ship in silence. Wilson's hands were shaking as she opened a channel to Council headquarters. How could she even begin to explain this? The humans were supposed to be dead, eliminated by the Council's greatest weapon. Instead, they had survived. They had grown stronger, and now they were back. Reed looked at his captain, his voice quiet. "What do we do now?" Wilson stared at the massive fleet on her screen. "We pray," she said softly. "We pray that the Council's ancient decision doesn't doom us all." As their small patrol ship turned to head back to Council space, the human fleet hung in the darkness behind them, a silent promise of what was to come. 3,000 years of exile had ended. The children of Earth had returned to reclaim their place in the galaxy. And this time, they weren't asking for permission. The massive human warship Legacy of Earth moved silently through space, its halls filled with the quiet hum of advanced machinery. In the ship's main hall, hundreds of crew members gathered around Admiral Stone as he prepared to tell the story that every human child learned from birth. 3,000 years ago, Stone began, his voice echoing through the hall. 10,000 of our ancestors escaped Earth's destruction in 3 generation ships. They were the lucky ones, the brave ones, the ones who believed the Council's promises of peace were lies. The Admiral walked to a large window, looking out at the stars. Behind him, the crew sat in respectful silence. Many of them had never heard the story directly from the fleet commander before. The ships were called Hope, Legacy, and Promise. Stone continued. They carried not just people, but everything we could save from Earth: seeds, animals, books, and technology. Our ancestors knew they might never see another human settlement again. They were right. He touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared in the center of the hall. It showed 3 massive ships, each one 5 kilometers long, disappearing into the darkness of unknown space. The journey was hard. The first 10 years, we lost almost 1,000 people to accidents and space sickness. But we survived. We found a cluster of habitable planets beyond the Council's reach. We called it New Heaven. And there we began to rebuild. The hologram changed, showing beautiful green and blue planets circling a distant sun. But next to these peaceful images were others: massive shipyards, weapon factories, and military academies. Our ancestors made a choice, Stone said, his voice growing harder. We would not just survive. We would become strong enough that no one could ever threaten us again. Every advance in technology, every scientific discovery, every new invention had one purpose: to protect humanity and prepare for this day. He pressed another button, and the hologram showed their current fleet, thousands of ships, each one carrying weapons that could destroy whole solar systems. From 10,000 survivors, we grew to billions. We built cities under the oceans of 30 worlds. We turned asteroids into fortresses. We learned to bend space itself to our will. And we never forgot what was done to Earth. In the front row, a young crew member named Mike raised his hand. "Sir, is it true that our ships could destroy the Council's entire fleet in minutes?" Stone nodded. "Our weakest ship has more firepower than their strongest battle station. But that's not what makes us dangerous." He smiled grimly. "What makes us dangerous is that we remember. We remember everything." The hologram changed one final time, showing the ruins of Earth, now just a field of asteroids where their home planet once stood. The crew grew silent, their faces hard with 3,000 years of passed-down anger. The Council thought they were being clever. Stone continued. They waited until our ambassadors signed a peace treaty. They waited until we began to trust them. Then they struck, thinking they could wipe us out in a single day. He turned to face his crew, his eyes burning with intensity. "But humanity doesn't die easily. We never have. And now, after 3,000 years of preparation, we're going to show them exactly what they should have been afraid of." The crew stood as one, their faces showing the same determination that had kept humanity alive through 30 centuries of exile. They were no longer just survivors. They were humanity's vengeance. Stone looked at his crew, engineers, soldiers, scientists, all descendants of those original 10,000 survivors. "Tomorrow, we begin our advance into Council space. Remember your training. Remember our history. And most importantly, remember Earth." As the crew filed out of the hall, Stone remained by the window, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council was just beginning to realize their ancient crime had come back to haunt them. He smiled slightly. 3,000 years was a long time to plan revenge. And humanity had planned very, very carefully. The Great Council chamber on Capital Prime had never been so quiet. 500 representatives from different alien species sat in stunned silence as Admiral Stone's message played on the massive screens around them. "Members of the Galactic Council," Stone's voice echoed through the chamber. 3,000 years ago, your predecessors committed an act of genocide against Earth. They thought they had destroyed humanity. They were wrong. The head counselor, an old alien named Blue, gripped the edges of his seat. On every screen in the chamber, Stone's face looked down at them with cold eyes. Humanity did not die. We escaped. We grew stronger. Our population now numbers in the billions, spread across thousands of worlds beyond your borders. Worlds you never found. Worlds where we built our strength and waited. The message was playing everywhere, on every council world, in every space station, on every ship. Stone had somehow taken control of all communication channels at once. Your sensors have already detected our first fleet, Stone continued, but that is only the beginning. We have 20 more fleets just like it. Our smallest ship carries weapons that could reduce your largest battle station to dust. We have technology you cannot understand and power you cannot match. In the council chamber, someone tried to shut off the transmission. It didn't work. The message kept playing. But we are not like you, Stone said. We will not destroy worlds without warning. We will not murder billions without giving them a chance. That is what makes us different from the council that tried to kill us. Blue looked around the chamber. Many of the younger representatives looked confused. They had never even heard of Earth or humans. The older ones, though, they knew. Their faces showed their fear. Here are our demands. Stone's voice grew harder. First, surrender the council members who ordered Earth's destruction. Yes, we know they're still alive. We know about their life extension technology. We know where they're hiding. Whispers broke out across the chamber. How could the humans know about that? The life extension program was the council's most closely guarded secret. Second, surrender all military installations and weapons. You've proven you cannot be trusted with them. Third, prepare to face justice for your crimes against humanity. Stone paused, letting his words sink in. You have 24 hours to respond. If you refuse, we will begin dismantling your civilization piece by piece. We will not harm civilians, but we will destroy every military base, every weapons platform, and every council facility until nothing remains of your power. The screen showed images of the human fleet. Their ships were beautiful and terrible, black against the stars with lines of blue energy pulsing along their hulls. 3,000 years ago, humanity asked to join your council in peace. You responded with genocide. Now we return, not asking to join, but offering you a choice. Surrender or be defeated. There will not be a third option. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in chaos as hundreds of representatives started shouting at once. How can they still exist? What are we going to do? We need to fight back. Did you see their ships? We can't fight that. Blue stood up slowly, raising his hands for quiet. When the chamber finally fell silent, his voice was heavy with worry. 3,000 years ago, the council made a terrible mistake. They feared humanity's potential so much that they tried to destroy it. Instead, they created exactly what they feared most, a humanity that had every reason to hate us, and 3,000 years to prepare for revenge. He looked around the chamber, at faces filled with fear and confusion. We have 24 hours to decide the future of our civilization. I suggest we use it wisely. Outside the council chamber, the news was spreading across the galaxy. Humanity had returned. And this time, they weren't the ones who were afraid. The countdown had begun. The emergency council meeting had been running for 12 hours straight. Time was running out. In the center of the chamber, Blue watched as another fight broke out between two council members. "We must fight," shouted General Rax, his scales turning red with anger. "We have the largest fleet in known space, 10,000 warships." "Did you see their technology?" answered Council Member Dax, her tentacles waving in frustration. "Our best scanners can't even understand how their ships work." Blue slammed his hand down on the table. "Enough. We have 11 hours left before the humans' deadline. We need solutions, not arguments." A quiet voice spoke up from the back of the room. "I found something in the ancient archives." Everyone turned to look at Keeper John, the council's head librarian. He was holding an old data crystal that glowed faintly blue. "This is a recording from the day they ordered Earth's destruction," John said. his hand shaking. Everyone should see this. He placed the crystal in a reader. A hologram appeared, showing a council meeting from 3,000 years ago. The faces were different, but the chamber was the same. "The humans are advancing too quickly," an ancient council member was saying. "They went from primitive rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than 200 years. If we wait another century, we won't be able to control them." Another ancient member spoke up. "Their creativity, their drive to explore, it's not natural. They're dangerous. They must be eliminated while we still can." The current council watched in horror as their predecessors voted to destroy Earth, not out of defense, not because humanity had done anything wrong, but because they were afraid of what humans might become. And now, Blue said quietly, "They have become exactly what our ancestors feared, not because it was their nature, but because we made them this way." Suddenly, alarms started blaring throughout the chamber. General Rax rushed to a communication panel. "What's happening?" Blue demanded. "The 3rd Defense Fleet engaged one of the human ships," Rax said, his voice tight with stress. They're all gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Dax asked. "One human ship, just one. It destroyed 300 of our best warships in less than 5 minutes." Rax's scales had turned pale. They didn't even need to use their main weapons, their point defense systems alone. The chamber fell silent as video from the battle appeared on the main screen. A single black human ship, moving with impossible grace, as hundreds of council ships fired at it. None of their weapons even touched it. Some kind of energy field around the human ship caught their shots and seemed to absorb them. Then the human ship fired back. Not with normal weapons. It released what looked like small dots of light. Each dot passed straight through council shields like they weren't there. Each dot destroyed a council ship instantly. 3 minutes and 42 seconds, Rax said quietly. That's how long it took one human ship to destroy our entire fleet. They didn't even seem to be trying very hard. Blue looked at the clock. 10 hours left until the deadline. "The ancient council members," he said finally. "The ones who ordered Earth's destruction. They're in the secure bunker under Mount Forever. They've been there for 3,000 years, extending their lives, pulling the council's strings from the shadows." "How do you know this?" Dax asked. "Because I've been helping protect them," Blue admitted. "But now I see what their fear and hatred has brought us. They killed Earth because they were afraid of human potential. And in doing so, they created something far more dangerous, humans who had nothing left to lose." He stood up straight. "I vote we surrender them to the humans. Give them what they want. It's the only way our civilization might survive." One by one, the council members began to nod. They had seen what just one human ship could do. They had no choice. The countdown continued. The deadline passed. The council had failed to reach a decision in time. Now, across 50 different star systems, the human fleet began to move. In the command center of Capital Prime, Blue watched as reports flooded in from everywhere at once. Human ships appearing in the Centauri system. They're over New Mars. Defense fleet at Beta Station is gone. They're inside our shields. How did they get inside our shields? Blue stared at the main screen, watching as hundreds of black ships appeared from nowhere near major council worlds. But something was strange. The humans weren't firing on cities or civilian areas. On his personal screen, a message flashed. It was from Admiral Stone. "Watch and learn the difference between justice and genocide," the message said. Above the capital city, a massive human ship appeared. It was larger than anything Blue had ever seen, its hull gleaming with that strange blue energy. But instead of attacking, it began broadcasting a message to every communication device in the city. "Attention citizens of Capital Prime. You have 1 hour to evacuate all military installations. Civilian areas will not be harmed. This is your only warning." Similar messages were playing across every council world. Blue watched in amazement as the humans began helping with evacuations, their smaller ships providing transport for civilians who needed to leave military zones. "Sir," one of the operators called out, "look at this." On the screen, they could see what was happening at the Council's largest military base. The human ships had surrounded it, but they weren't attacking. Instead, they were creating some kind of energy field that lifted the entire base, buildings, weapons, and all off the ground. "They're not destroying the bases," Blue realized. "They're taking them, stealing our entire military infrastructure." Reports kept coming in. On every world, the pattern was the same. Human ships would appear, give warning, evacuate civilians, and then simply take what they wanted. Military bases disappeared into huge transport ships. Weapon platforms were plucked from orbit. Defense stations were carefully dismantled. In the Council's most secure bunker, General Rax was furious. "We can't just let them take everything. Launch the hidden fleet. Use the secret weapons." The general pressed a button, and from hidden bases across Council space, thousands of ships emerged. They were the Council's secret advantage. Ships built with technology stolen from a dozen different races, kept hidden for centuries. The human ships didn't even slow down. Their energy fields caught the Council's secret weapons and simply absorbed them. When the Council ships fired their most powerful guns, the human ships turned the energy back on them. "Impossible," Rax whispered. "Those weapons were unstoppable." "No," Blue said quietly. "We just never faced anyone strong enough to stop them. Until now." The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 6 hours. When it was over, the Council had lost every military installation, every weapons platform, and every warship they had ever built, but not a single civilian had been harmed. Admiral Stone's face appeared on screens across Council space again. "Your military power is gone," he said simply. "We could have destroyed your worlds. We could have killed billions. That's what you would have done in our place. But we are not you." He paused, his eyes hard. "Now about those ancient Council members hiding in their bunker. We're coming for them next, and we know exactly where they are." In the command center, Blue looked at the others. 3,000 years ago, the Council tried to destroy humanity because they were afraid of what humans might become. Now we see what they did become. More powerful than we could imagine, but also more merciful than we deserved. Above them, the human ships hung in the sky like black stars, waiting. The real battle was about to begin, not for military power, but for justice 3,000 years overdue. Deep under Mount Forever, in a bunker designed to survive anything, 12 ancient Council members watched their plans crumble. They hadn't aged a day in 3,000 years, thanks to their life extension technology. "How did they find us?" asked First Elder Mark, his artificial skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "This facility doesn't exist in any records." "They've known all along," Second Elder Phil replied, checking the bunker's defenses again. "Somehow, they've known everything." The bunker shook slightly. Above them, human ships were systematically taking apart the mountain's defenses, layer by layer. The ancient Council members had hidden their command center under kilometers of rock and metal, protected by the most advanced shields ever created. It wasn't going to be enough. On their screens, they watched as human ships used impossible technology to simply phase through solid matter, passing through their defenses like they weren't there. "Tell me again," Third Elder Jack said, his voice shaking. "Why did we really destroy Earth?" First Elder Mark turned away from the screens. "You know why. Their minds were different. They could imagine things we couldn't, create things we couldn't. Given enough time, they would have surpassed us all. So we killed them," Phil said quietly. "Not because they were a threat, but because they made us feel inferior." The bunker shook again, harder this time. On the main screen, Admiral Stone's face appeared. He shouldn't have been able to access their systems, but he had. "Hello, Elders," Stone said calmly. Did you really think we wouldn't find you? We've known where you were for the last 1,000 years. Impossible, Mark shouted. Our security was designed by beings who think linearly. Stone interrupted. Humanity has evolved beyond such limitations. We've been watching you, learning how you manipulated the Council for 3,000 years, keeping yourself in power through fear and lies. The bunker shook a third time. Dust fell from the ceiling. Did you know, Stone continued, that most Council races would have welcomed humanity, that your own people were excited about meeting us, but you couldn't allow that. You couldn't risk letting anyone see what humanity might become. Through the security cameras, they could see human soldiers appearing inside the bunker, walking through walls like ghosts. Their armor was black with lines of blue energy, just like their ships. You have one chance, Stone said. Surrender and face trial for your crimes, or don't. Either way, your rule ends today. Mark looked at the others. For 3,000 years, they had guided the Council from the shadows. They had shaped civilizations, started and ended wars, all to maintain their power. And now, we still have one option, he said, reaching for a red button. The quantum bomb. If we can't rule the galaxy, maybe no one should. But when he pressed the button, nothing happened. Stone's face showed the smallest hint of a smile. Looking for this, the camera panned to show a human ship holding a massive device in an energy field. We removed your bomb 3 days ago. You didn't notice because we replaced it with a hologram. The bunker's doors slid open. Human soldiers walked in, their weapons not even drawn. They didn't need them. 3,000 years ago, you killed Earth because you were afraid of human potential. Stone said, you were right to be afraid, but not for the reasons you thought. The soldiers began arresting the ancient council members one by one. You feared our creativity, our ability to imagine new things, Stone continued, but you should have feared our memory, our patience, our determination to see justice done, no matter how long it took. As they were led away, Mark looked at his fellow elders. What will they do to us? Stone answered from the screen. Something you never gave humanity. A fair trial. Because that's the difference between us. You ruled through fear. We'll bring change through justice. The ancient council members' reign was over. 3,000 years of secret control had ended not with a bang, but with quiet arrest by the very beings they had tried to destroy. Justice had finally arrived. The trial lasted 1 month. In the Great Hall of Capital Prime, representatives from every council race gathered to watch as the 12 ancient elders faced justice. Evidence collected over 3,000 years was presented day after day. Admiral Stone sat in the front row, watching as the truth was finally revealed to the galaxy. Next to him sat Blue, who had helped expose the elders' secret control. The evidence shows, the chief judge announced, that the elders not only destroyed Earth without cause, but have manipulated galactic politics for 3,000 years. They started wars, toppled governments, and suppressed technological advancement, all to maintain their power. The elders sat in silence as their crimes were listed. 3,000 years of secrets laid bare. More importantly, the judge continued, they denied the galaxy a chance to know humanity as allies and friends. Their fear and hatred cost us all a better future. The sentence was announced. The elders would spend the rest of their lives helping to rebuild what they had destroyed. Their life extension technology would be used to ensure they lived long enough to see the results of their work. After the trial, Admiral Stone stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking down at a special project humanity had been working on. Below, on a newly terraformed planet, cities were rising from the ground, built by both human and council technology working together. Is it true? Blue asked, standing next to him. Are you really going to share your technology with us? Stone nodded. Not the weapons, not yet, but medical technology, clean energy, space travel. Yes, it's time for the galaxy to move forward together. On the planet below, the first group of mixed species colonists was arriving. Humans working alongside council races, building something new. "We're calling it New Earth," Stone said. "A place where all species can learn from each other, where fear doesn't drive us apart." In other parts of the galaxy, similar changes were happening. Human ships were helping to rebuild damaged worlds. Human doctors were sharing medical advances that could save billions of lives. Human scientists were working with council researchers to solve problems that had seemed impossible. But how? Blue asked. "How can you forgive what was done to Earth?" Stone turned to face him. "We don't forgive. We remember. But we choose to build something better from that memory. That's what makes us human." He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared between them, the original Earth, as it had looked 3,000 years ago. "We could have destroyed the Council worlds," Stone said quietly. "We had the power. Many of us wanted to. But that would have made us just like the Elders, ruled by fear and hatred." Below them, on New Earth, the first buildings were taking shape. Schools where children from all species would learn together. Hospitals where different races would work to heal each other. Research centers where shared knowledge would build a better future. Instead, Stone continued, "We chose to do what humanity does best. Imagine something better and work to make it real." The hologram changed, showing the galaxy as it was now, not divided into human and council space, but united under a new banner, the Galactic Alliance. 3,000 years ago, humanity asked to join the council as equals, Stone said. Now we offer something different, a chance for all species to work together as partners, not ruled by fear, but guided by hope. Blue looked at the human admiral. "And the Elders? They'll live to see every change they feared come true," Stone replied. "They'll watch as their nightmare of human potential becomes a dream of what we can all achieve together." As the sun set on New Earth, ships from 100 worlds moved through the sky above. Human ships flew alongside council vessels, their crews working together to build something that had never existed before, a truly united galaxy. 3,000 years of darkness had ended. A new age was beginning. And this time, it would be built on hope, not fear.